Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, and last night, President Donald Trump became subject to his fourth indictment nationwide, an indictment surrounding the Georgia 2020 presidential election, in which President Trump is being accused of here as being the head of a criminal enterprise to overturn the election results, specifically in the state of Georgia, whether that means accessing secure ballots, intimidating the Secretary of State to overturn the election results, and find fraudulent votes, to a wide range of accusations and claims being made by the Fulton County District Attorney. Now, with this indictment, President Trump now faces a very serious legal challenge, one that prevents him from even pardoning himself should he be elected president come November 2024. This serves to be the fourth, again, indictment nationwide, which proves to show Donald Trump has a lot of future legal troubles. Now, there are a number of indictments that we have not covered on this channel, whether that means I was in downtime and not uploading, or I simply just didn't cover it because at the time I wanted to see how far this would actually go. I think the reason why the hesitancy came from my end was because I thought that every single time there was a new indictment, that would be the end. It would give us time to analyze its impact, see a change in the polls. But ultimately, we aren't really seeing much data that proves to show what these indictments have ultimately done. And that's because I don't think that there is any benefit or detriment to Donald Trump in the present moment due to these indictments. I think the conclusion of them, however, will have severe repercussions on his general election chances, but surprisingly enough, boost him in the primary election. Now, we're going to be talking about the main indictments here. We range all the way from hush money with Stormy Daniels to a federal documents probe to the election integrity of nationally with his federal indictment and Georgia with his statewide indictment. I mean, you have a number of things to unpack here, but a lot of it circles around the decisions that Donald Trump made leaving office. The only one that really doesn't is the Stormy Daniels situation, where there is this accusation that Donald Trump used campaign finances to pay hush money, over $100,000 to Stormy Daniels to not speak out against President Trump. A lot of campaign violations, a lot of finance violations, a lot of things that are being investigated currently. But I certainly don't think that takes the cake. We're actually going to be taking a look at the current indictments and seeing how important they actually are. CNN has this tracking Trump's legal entanglements because, quite frankly, there are a lot. We start off again with the most recent one being the Georgia election results released yesterday, discussing the efforts within the state. Went through a grand jury issuing this report saying that Donald Trump needs to appear. He's going to be arrested. They announced recently, actually, last night, that Donald Trump will have a mugshot, and I can guarantee you the moment that that drops, the internet is going to explode, for a variety of reasons. But you can see that this is already starting to be a very big deal. And this isn't just what Donald Trump is tackling alone. He also has the U.S. Justice Department, which also served him a federal indictment dealing with January 6th, dealing with the insurrection, dealing with how you can respond to losing an election. You again also have the hush money payments aren't as important as the rest, and then also the Mar-a-Lago documents, which again is important but isn't as important as the federal investigation surrounding the election or the Fulton County investigation surrounding Georgia's presidential election. So a lot of things to unpack here. We're really going to be focusing on Georgia because I think this is the one that could truly have the most severe implications. Outside of all of these things, I think some of them are way more minimal and probably won't be too detrimental to Donald Trump in the long run. We already know about his relationship with Stormy Daniels. We already know about the classified documents. But, as much as the Democratic Party and many independents know that Donald Trump is responsible for the January 6th insurrection, the punishment that will come with it will likely hurt Donald Trump's chances at winning the election. Now, I do want to bring up a very similar situation, one that actually deals with the Mar-a-Lago documents. The FBI raid that occurred on President Trump's property back in 2022. Now, this was August 9th. This was the same time at which the 2022 midterm elections were coming around. This was around the same time that you saw the abortion referendums coming around in Kansas. This was around the time as many special elections, and the Republican Party made all of these arguments that the American public was going to side with President Trump because they would see the FBI as a politically motivated organization by Joe Biden to go after President Donald Trump. The argument was made even going all the way through many of these candidates that are now running for president. We can see here, let's see if we can actually pull up the results, the Republican nomination poll, because this is a very interesting place to be. You see a lot of these candidates on the list here that are running against Donald Trump were the same ones who defended him when his home was raided by the FBI. I mean, even Mike Pence, even Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis even publicly calling on the disillusionment of the present-day FBI. So you have a number of candidates, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, who sided with President Trump when the FBI raided his home, saying that it was an egregious overstep. And the Republicans were arguing on Fox News and other right-wing sources that the public was going to side with President Trump and punish Democrats in the midterm elections. That this was the Republican Party's issue of abortion, that it would benefit them in terms of turnout, that it would help the Republican Party's chances. And the only person it did help on the Republican side was Donald Trump. But in terms of their actual performance come that election, there was no bump or change in support following this FBI, raid of President Trump's home. In the 2022 congressional vote, Chair, you can see that during that time frame, when the raid happened, Republicans led by 0.1. Weeks later, they're leading by 0.2. It's a very marginal change, if a change at all, because for a period of time, Democrats led by 0.2 following the raid in the immediate aftermath in polls taken days after the raid had already occurred. So there is no argument here based on Donald Trump's history, at least in this particular case, that there should be a tremendous or at least somewhat significant bump for President Trump. But the Republican Party is insistent that these indictments are going to help. And we're going to pretty much talk about, as you can see here, why that simply isn't true. Because in many of these cases where they are going after President Trump for classified documents or Stormy Daniels or the insurrection, a lot of it is founded. These are not unfounded claims. I mean, anyone can see where they are getting their argument from. Now, we might disagree on whether or not it's fair for this to be pursued in a presidential election year. We might disagree if we believe that it is right in terms of the argument that they're making, that they violated certain statutes, or that this was legally allowed by President Trump and everyone else was acting on their own accord, that Donald Trump himself didn't do the insurrection. But what we are seeing here is that based on the special jury that just released the indictment in Georgia, based on the Department of Justice, based on the New York prosecutors, I mean, whoever it is will be building that case. And it will be up to a judge, a jury, whoever it might be, to make that decision about Donald Trump's punishment and the impact of this on the election. Because if Donald Trump goes to jail for something that he did related to Georgia, he will lose the election. If Donald Trump has any type of, non-probational punishment, non-monetary punishment, meaning he goes to jail even for an evening, Donald Trump will lose the election, because the American public is at this point where I think what the polls aren't capturing here, and I think they are capturing it in some states, recent New Hampshire polls show Joe Biden doing better than he did in 2020, is that for one, the public doesn't recognize that a rematch is imminent. I think it's a lot harder to see how that's actually possible because it simply doesn't happen. It has happened once in United States history, and that was with President Grover Cleveland, who won his race, but rematch elections are very, very rare. And two, that Joe Biden will do better following these indictments. The American public, as we have seen with Mar-a-Lago and as we have seen with many other circumstances, rarely sides with politicians who are proven to be in some cases, criminals. I'm not calling Donald Trump a criminal, but there are criminal politicians that have existed in the past, corrupt politicians, ones from Illinois, ones from other states, where you see that based off media investigation and based off of the prosecutors that build this case, build the narrative, in essence, the American public turns against them. And I am telling you now that they will turn against Donald Trump, because it isn't just this issue that I think drags him down as a candidate. It is everything else that he has done since losing the last election. And while I do think it serves him to his detriment in the general election, it 100% benefits him in the primary season. The only problem is this election doesn't matter as much as the general. Donald Trump already has a grip on the Republican Party, but you have to be asking, why is he doing better? Well, it's the standard case. As you always see with these echo chambers, is that the person who's leading the echo chamber, keeping everybody inside, will preemptively say, for this example, the FBI is going to go after me. The Department of Justice is going to go after me. The Georgia Democrats are going to go after me. and they're going to put me in jail. So when that actually happens, the people who support this candidate, in this case Donald Trump, are reaffirmed that he's this prophet. He's this person who can see through everything that is happening and is telling us that it's going to happen, so therefore he must be in the right. That they are actually pursuing this witch hunt because he predicted it was going to happen. Essentially, he was saying that he did a lot of these things that they are accusing him of, and that they are going to punish him. But instead, it is being spun in a way amongst the Republican base that Joe Biden is scared of running against Donald Trump. And this is a double-edged sword here because it helps him here, but kills him in the general. It does a very bad job at helping him become electable because the American public, the median voter, will not vote for somebody who is a 4-time indicted former president, will not vote for somebody they believe incited an insurrection, will not vote for somebody they believe paid off Stormy Daniels with campaign funds that they may have fundraised even from that independent candidate back or voter back in 2016. I mean, there are lines that are drawn that are very different in the Republican nomination than they are on the presidential level. There is a reason why his numbers go up amongst the Republican base and either plateau or decrease amongst the American public. While Joe Biden isn't exactly in the best position possible, he's still leading. He is still doing better than the right wing would have you believe because there is a narrative to be told if Donald Trump is the nominee. If the Republican Party still wants to beat Joe Biden with all of these indictments coming forth, they have to preemptively say that these indictments are fraudulent, that Donald Trump is innocent, that he was cleared of wrongdoing in the United States Senate, even though nearly 20% of the Republican delegation in the Senate voted to convict Donald Trump in that time when we had that impeachment trial. I mean, you have a considerable chunk of the Senate GOP that would side with many of these lawyers in these cases, but they're starting to try to, decrease the credibility of these decade-long lawyers, of district attorneys, of judges who are trying to rule on this case fairly because they know that Donald Trump's numbers are increasing and they have to protect him in every way they can if they are to run with him in the general election. Candidates are scared. Notably, you see senators like Ted Cruz coming out against these indictments because his ballot is on the same one as Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump is losing in 2024 in Texas, chances are Ted Cruz is too. Because Donald Trump won Texas by 9 points in 2016. 2 years later, Ted Cruz wins by 3. 2 years later, Donald Trump wins by just 5.6. Can you imagine 4 years later, when there is a lot more energy and enthusiasm on the Democratic side in the sense that Donald Trump will be potentially in this bad reality for the GOP, a convicted felon, a convicted criminal. It's fascinating to say the least, but it puts us in a unique position that this is the first time we've ever seen it happen. There are a lot of accusations coming Donald Trump's way, a lot of things that really, really do matter. Because it isn't just the Republican Party or it isn't just the Democratic Party that sees this as bad. It's independent, median, average American voters that look at this and say, I'm never voting for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump has been a poison to the Republican Party since being elected. He did one good election for their party, and that was it. Lost in 2018, lost in 2020, lost in 2022. I mean, Democrats would be very happy to replicate 2022 and 2024. But what I will say, too, is that this turns off the median voter. No matter how they try to spin it, these consistent and multiple indictments and accusations and court cases against the former president becomes way too many for it to be this targeted witch hunt. Donald Trump has evidenced by his name that links him to all of these crimes. The accusations that are being made here have gone through extensive legal challenges, vetting procedures, petitions by the Trump campaign to move the trial, move the time frame of arraignment, whatever it might be. They are trying to push this off as far as possible so that it doesn't impact the 2024 election. And when the Trump campaign is asking you to move it beyond the election, it's because they know that this is going to have a serious impact, because it absolutely will. It isn't just one, it isn't just two, it isn't just three. Today marks 4, and potentially more. This is a very bad position to be in if you are the former president. It's good in the primary, but very, very bad when it comes down to the general election. And I think the Republican Party will realize that way too late, just as they did in 2022, in 2020, and 2018, except this time, I think it takes it to a whole new level. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 Republican primary analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.